All right, welcome back to episode 27 of the 20 Pages Book Club. On today's episode, we're going to go through a quick weekend recap. We're going to finish up The Road, our first book of 2024. We're going to give our thoughts and our scores. Interested to see where this one lands. Then we will compare the movie versus the book. If you haven't watched the movie, make sure you go ahead and watch The Road. It was released in 2007, and then you can compare it with the book with us. And then Kevin's going to help us decide our next book. He's got 5 or 6 books to put into the wheel. And from there, the wheel is just, and we'll decide what we're reading next. So, looking forward to another great episode. Let's go. All right, welcome back, episode 27. I know we have a lot to cover today, and the group kind of decided since we were all bums this weekend and really didn't do anything. Uh, our weekend recap was not very exciting. I don't know if it usually is to those listening, but so we just said we're all bums and we'll just go straight into the book. I know this is only a 2 meeting book for The Road since it was pretty short and a kind of a quicker read. Could someone remind me what page we left off on last?
138.
138, yeah. So if you haven't read up to 138, make sure you go back, listen to the first episode where we discuss those pages. And yeah, let's get into it. Let's finish this book and see where it ranks.
Just to remind everyone, we left off, they had just discovered something and were beginning to dig it up. All right, with that, we begin. The boy and the man walked into the bunker. All they could see was crate upon crate filled with food and other resources. For dinner, they enjoyed canned peaches and pears. Soaking in the ability to eat healthy. From there, the man put the kid to bed in the nice bunk. He reflected on the fortune, but decided that they couldn't stay here for long. People would come for it. In the morning, he and the boy shared another nice meal. The boy thanked God for these people that left these things behind. From there, the boy was given a bath. In the daylight, they picked up a new cart. Returning to the bunker, the man shaved and went to sleep. He awoke suddenly. He dreamed of creatures, presumably aliens. He thought of his existence. He partially regretted finding this cache. He wanted it all to be over.
Okay, this is a me break. Forewarning, I don't really remember what I put in all of these. So,
I can back you up. Oh, okay. Never mind.
why? What is the significance of the boy thanking the people for the food from the bunker? Why does the man decline to the boy? Why does the man ask the boy to give thanks instead of giving thanks himself?
I think we kind of talked about it last meeting where the boy's kind of like the positive light, where the man's kind of this negative and like it's like a pure survivalist, and that makes sense. So I don't know. I don't know the exact
Yeah, the boy is like
word for it,
oblivious
but yeah.
to the outside world. Like he hasn't experienced the normal time, so he doesn't know. He doesn't know what normal is, and just assumes this is normal. So he's kind of oblivious to. He has no recollection of what the world was like before. So this is the world he knows, and then he still has like that thankful and positive mindset, whereas the father knows what the world was like before, and then knows what it's like now, and is like, wow, this is tough. Like this is terrible to live in.
The man is also
Yeah.
super skittish. Like they could have stayed there for so much longer. Like and looking at it, like especially in the movie, the way they depicted it, like they could have literally lived there for so long. But because I mean, the main name of the game is that you're trying to find food, and they found the food, and then they decided to leave the food as soon as they found it, like after 3 days. Like
I
it
think
just didn't make a lot of sense to
I
me.
think the
What do you
reason he
think?
does that is because he only has one purpose in living now, which is getting to the coast. Like that's the goal he's given himself. So anything that deters him from getting to that coast is like ultimately not in his head as their journey that they're supposed to take. Now, why they're going to the coast is never exactly given, but it's just like it's in his mind that they have to reach the coast. So I think that's why they ultimately didn't stay there. Um, and then ultimately, once he gets to the coast, his journey's over. Bookend, world credits, type thing stuff.
Nice.
Nice. All
I
right.
I read this part after Tyler had talked a lot about the religious. side of and how the man was always mentioning God. I kind of read this part as like this being almost like temptation, and especially with the apples right beforehand. And I thought they were gonna get like tempted, and then greed. Like this is a part where greed could have taken over, and then they could have been found and killed. Because in the movie, they hear the dog, which I mean, we'll get to the movie and stuff, but I don't think that was mentioned in the book. But in the movie, at least they were being followed. So I think that's also another part of why the man is so skittish. He just thinks they're always being followed,
Yeah.
and he's looking at this as like temptation, and he doesn't want to get too greedy.
Good point. Any other thoughts before I carry on? All right. The following day, they prepared the cart for the road. It was time. With the first glimpse of sunlight, they left the bunker. The man told the boy they were 200 miles from the coast. At least that was his estimate. Just as they reached the outline of a city, they stopped for a rest. The boy asked if they had any long-term goals. The man was baffled, but admitted that he didn't know. For a couple hours, the boy noticed a man walking in the road. They chose to follow him. It turned out to be an old man, and the boy was fascinated by him, begging his father to help feed him, eventually convincing him the older gentleman would join them for the night. His name was Eli, or at least we're told. Upon camp late, they discussed life with Eli. He told them that he always knew something like this was going to happen. The man asked Eli if he wished he had died. Eli responded that beggars can't be choosers. It just is what it is. Nobody wants to be here, and nobody wants to leave. They then discussed if they would know if they were the last ones on Earth. The man said only God would know, and Eli responded that there was no God, and that we were his prophets. Which I was very confused. But from here, the man starts to get suspicious of Eli, confronting him about how he has survived and his real name. Eli admitted that the name he gave was fake, but that he didn't trust anyone to speak of him. Eli explains that when he saw the boy, he thought he was dead. He hadn't seen a child in so long. Capping off that the world will be a better place when everyone is gone. In the morning, they gave the man a little bit of goods and went on their way.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Nah, you go first.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the same question, so I'll let you go because I want to answer it.
Eli is such a conflicting character to me. I don't know what his purpose is. I want to know what you guys think. The name choice is religious, but then did I even finish this thought? Oh, uh, the name choice is Jesus Christ. The name choice is religious, and then he seems to come from religious origins. Like he's very philosophical, but at the same time, he believes in no God. So I was curious what you guys thought of Eli and why McCarthy chose to include him in the story.
He almost seemed like a prophet, almost like that. He was like a kind of sent to meet them. I don't know what it really proved, honestly. I couldn't figure it out. Maybe I'm too stupid to realize it, but
So
interesting to think.
I looked up some stuff. I found this book. Honestly, this is such I like when we get to our book review, I have such like a wide variance of how I felt about this book. Like there's some things I loved and some things I hated, but I love reading about like little hidden like symbolism and like stuff like this. And so I started researching stuff, and then so apparently Eli is a Hebrew name that means high or elevated, which so like Jared, I feel like you're kind of right in what you said, how he's like almost a prophet. But then it's really weird how he says like he just keeps claiming there is no God. And then he also starts talking about like how would you even know? One of the big things he hit on was how would you know if you were the last person on earth? And then they were like, well, I guess you wouldn't because you couldn't possibly know you were the last person. And then that kind of sounded godlike, like would Eli would know if he was the last person because he's like God sent or is God. I don't know. This character confused me a ton. And then at the end, he's just like, yeah, my name wasn't Eli. And then they just part ways. And I was like, huh, why would, why would they include this in the story? I feel like Tyler's gonna have a good take.
I don't. I remember Eli
Yep.
being in the Bible, somewhat. Like there's a character, Eli. I had to look it up because I honestly
There's two.
don't know.
There's two religious characters. It
Uh,
was confusing too.
the the one that was helping raise Samuel, the Bible is that his story is that he starts to devalue God at a certain point, which I think this character is sort of basing on. So I definitely there's some religious subtext here. I don't know if he's trying to make a whole big religious point with him necessarily. I think he just presents a different mindset to what the characters are currently experiencing, and that ultimately that difference challenges our characters in some sort of way. I mean, it's all symbolism, as Kevin said. So I don't, you know,
The alternative that I kind of thought of is that he was a prophet of death, possibly. Um, he mentions like knowing that this was going to come eventually, and they talk a lot about death and wonder how would you know if you're the last person on Earth. That's the only thing I could conjure up. I guess the other alternative is Tyler knows this reference, but uh, he's a Tom Bombadil character where he adds no real significance to the story and he kind of just deters the reader and you just left in
Smokescreen.
confusion at what he's actually meant to represent.
I am reading a Christian website right now because I looked it up while you're this. Like with the paragraph
I
says,
read this also.
really?
Yeah,
Christianity.com?
it makes no sense. Oh, I thought you meant Spark Notes,
No,
my
no, no.
website.
I read the Spark Notes one.
All right. Perhaps saddest of all is that even when Eli was confronted with the reality of pending judgment, he didn't seem to comprehend or care, willing to take the consequences of neglecting God in his heart. He revealed himself as a man who had let God slip to last place in his affections. Kind of sounds very similar to the character we're mentioned here. So interesting.
Okay.
I when I read this book, I found myself like finding a lot of parallels to almost Hinduism too with the karma system. I don't know, like obviously you can just like relate it to obviously old age after we find out what happens to the man at the end, but the boy's good deeds and like the way he treats people is rewarded in the end, whereas the old man is, or the man is not. I wonder if that had anything to do when he was reading it, just kind of the way it plays out. After I read it, I was kind of trying to draw. I don't know if any of you guys kind of saw anything similar to that, like anything away from maybe like other religions. I don't even know how many other religions like we wouldn't even know, but
Yeah, I'm not well versed enough in I'm not even well versed enough in the Bible, so it's
Yeah.
stuff. All right, I'll carry on. Sorry, I lost my place where we stopped. There we go. All right, thanks, Kevin. The boy and the man continued on their adventure. The boy confronted the man about making fun of the old man, telling him that he was going to die soon. The man admitted that was true. At night, the man awoke in a violent cough. He ventured to get more dry leaves for the fire. He admitted to himself that his time was also coming to an end. In the ward, the bad news continued to compile. The gas tank had emptied. It would be cold food for a while. The boy discovered that it was his fault for not turning the valves, but the man bore the blame. After a few more nights, the man awoke to the boy telling him about a train. The train was a giant diesel, followed by 8 passenger carts. It had clearly been there for a long time. The man took the opportunity to take the boy into the locomotive and simulate the train noises. From there, they stumbled into town. The man updated his map and plotted that it was 2 to 3 weeks until they reached the sea. They settled in a shed for the night. The boy awoke shaking. He told the man that he had a bad dream, that the man was crying in his dream. Carrying on, they encountered 3 strangers in the road. They pressed about the contents of their cart, but stood down when the man pointed the pistol at them. At night, they settled. However, the man caught a fever. For nights, he endured agony. After a few more, he decided that they must carry on. Painfully, he walked, stricken with sickness and diarrhea. In addition, he could feel a distance building between the boy and him. Ultimately, they encountered a group of bodies. Despite the man's objections, the boy decided to look at them. While they passed, they settled, and the boy and the man agreed that someone was following them. They would camp out and look for them. In the night, the group passed them, 3 men and 1 pregnant woman, looking ragged like them. In the morning, they seemingly caught up to the group. However, they left a burning fire. That was odd. However, the boy discovered something, a charred infant body. It had been gutted for food. They settled by the river for the night, purely because he thought that it would cheer the boy up. There, they ate their last provisions a little later on, drinking their last good water. The boy says that they could have taken the little infant if they would have encountered it. The man avoided the conversation, asking to carry on. He asked the boy if he wanted to ride in the cart. He said no. The man pushed them towards a house on top of the hill. They needed to check it out. They were out of food. Despite the boy's protests, the man explored the house. There they enjoyed some food that had been stored in containers. It was their shelter for several nights. A lot there.
Yeah, so something I was in charge of the environment stuff after our last conversation. I didn't really chime in with that stuff just because we went in detail about Eli. Something I did notice though was the boy and the father having a conversation about stuff being left in the street that's like charred and burned to ashes, and the boy asks, they were trying to get away, weren't they? Papa? And then he says, yes, they were. And then little boy asks, why didn't they leave the road? And he said they couldn't. Everything was on fire. So Christian's take about I think it was Christian, the volcanic eruption, possibly, or because we never actually do find out what happens, but it seems like that could be what was caused, what caused the fire and the flames. Um, and then kind of a question I wanted to pose: do you think there's any sort of Jared kind of touched on this a little bit with about the karma system, but is there any sort of symbolism maybe between the man and the boy where the man is almost he's super hyper focused on the boy and his well-being, whereas the boy is more focused on everybody that they encounters well-being and not just like themselves? Do you think there's any like symbolism or meaning to that?
I guess. I mean, are you saying that to the man, the only thing that matters in the world at this point is the boy, and to the boy, the world that he's going to inherit and be a part of matters to him? So he matter like ultimately. Actually, now that I say that out loud, I think you're right because the boy cares. Like once we get deeper into the story, he cares about um they encounter some people and the man does some unjust things to a thief, and ultimately the boy's the one that cares about the actions because he's the one that has to live in the world and he wants to have a better world for himself to live in, and the man is only solely focused on the boy's survival. So I think you're right, long story short.
Yeah, there's a quote after that where the boy or the man says, "You're not the one who has to worry about things." And then the boy responds how he is actually the one who has to worry about things. And I think it's just the fact that the man has lived this whole life and he's had plenty of time to do good deeds, and he's not fully worried about doing good deeds now. He's more so worried about boy, and those are his things that he has to worry about. Meanwhile, the boy has a whole life to live, and he wants to live a good life, even in the world that he's been brought up in. So those are the things that he has to worry about, and that's why he kind of shoots back at his father. And I think you get kind of the difference in their perspectives of their current predicament in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, and then the section I just read, we start. I think this is where the book really progresses, and we'll get to the movie because the movie sort of does something else, but the book really progresses here and shows the boy starting to break off and become his own person. Up to this point, he was like an attachment, he's a backpack basically. But at this point, he starts to grow his own conscience and really speak up for himself and become his own character in a way.
Yeah, I like that quote that Christian brought up. That was one of my I like stopped reading and I was like, what does this mean? Like I couldn't and then in the movie he says the exact same lines and I was trying to figure out there was some like higher meaning to it. And the only thing I could really think of was kind of what Christian alluded to, but that the man's like I'm the one that has to worry about everything is in like between the two of them. But then the boy is more like, no, I have to worry about everything in terms of like you harming mankind and harming other people and
Yep.
being this like devilish figure almost.
All right. With that, I'll carry on. From the house, they ventured onto the road with their canned goods, new blankets, and wheelbarrow. For days, they traveled until they reached the sea. It wasn't blue to the boy's disappointment. Despite that, they sat on the beach and talked. The boy focused on saying that they needed to retain that fire. The boy then took the opportunity to swim. With that complete, they set out looking out upon the ocean. A while later, the man decided that he was going to swim to the nearby ship, leaving the boy alone with the pistol. Despite the boy's protests, he began to swim. Once he reached the ship, he found airtight doors. After some work, he was able to pry them open. Inside the ship, it was clearly untouched by humans, but the sea had done damage. From there, he took an opportunity to wave at the boy from the ship. Back in the ship, the man was able to scavenge some clothing, a bottle of gas, and some odd ends. Returning to the deck, he spotted the boy again, this time walking with his head down. Returning down, he made his last pass through the lockers, collecting rope and some old but edible food. With that, he returned to the sea and ashore. He was greeted by the boy who was crying. He had left the pistol. Quickly, they returned to the site the boy had left it, and the pistol still remained.
Okay. Twice now. Once with the gas, and now with the pistol. The boy makes a mistake, and the man takes the blame. The man wants the boy to so badly understand how to survive on his own. Why does he do this when the boy is so obviously a motor moron?
It's a good question.
Great question. Bad parenting.
I mean, this goes back to what I said, but the boy, like the man will do anything for the boy for like his well-being and his like to have him have a good conscience where like he gets so hyper focused on him and he I think the question he asks himself in the beginning of the movie, and I can't remember, I think he definitely asks it in the beginning of the book when he says, when the time comes, will you be able to do it? And he's not talking about using the gun on somebody else, he's talking about like shooting the boy. And I think there's a conflict, like an inner conflict with him where he's scared of like he goes back and forth. Should he reprimand the boy and like teach him how to survive, or is he gonna let him like is he even gonna let him survive on his own, or once he's gonna die, is he just gonna kill the boy because he doesn't want him to live on his own in this world and potentially have bad things happen to him?
Yeah. All right. They now pursued their tarp and their beach encampment. However, tough rain came, and their tracks were whoa, am I reading the right part?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right,
Yeah.
Sorry, let me read that. Sorry, I messed up. They now pursued their tarp and their beach encampment. However, tough rain came and their tracks were deleted from the beach. Despite the inability to see, they heard the rain beating off the tarp. With that, they took shelter and fell asleep. The next day, they spent unloading more supplies from the ship. The man would take trips out and the boy would reel in the supplies with the rope. However, the work was putting a toll on the man. He continued to cough up blood. He decided to take one more trip, this time securing a flare gun, flashlight, and first aid kit. Returning to shore, the boy questions the man about the existence of people in the world, how many were left. The man said he liked to believe that there were still people out there carrying on. More importantly, they would find them. They ended the night having some fun, shooting the flare gun over the waterway. The next morning started very poorly. The boy awoke sick. He immediately puked, and his temperature continued to rise. They carried on for the next 48 hours, and the man feared for his health. The first aid kit didn't provide much relief. He continued to aid the kid, but he was barely holding on. The fatigue was getting to him, and his cough was getting violent. Thankfully, the next morning the boy began to heal. He took the opportunity to drink a lot of water, and even teased his dad. His father asked him if he remembered going to the boat. He responded that he wasn't retarded. That's in quotes. After that, the boy really started to heal, and they went about regular activities. Just at this time, they got struck with robbery. Someone had stolen the cart. With swiftness, they took to the road to try and scout the robber, tracking the sand left in the road. After a while, they caught the man. He was bent over the cart, tired from exhaustion. The man took out a knife, but seeing the gun pointed at him made him drop it. He begged to be let go, and the boy agreed, telling his father to leave the man alone. Let him walk. Despite the boy's cries, the man forced the robber to strip naked. The boy continued to protest, begging his father to spare the man. The man stood firm. In his eyes, it was either him or them. With that, they left, leaving a man to die in the middle of the road. However, the boy continued to protest, and they turned around, calling for the man who didn't appear. After a while, they called it off, leaving his clothes in the middle of the road. At night, they settled by the campfire. The man broke the silence, saying that he didn't plan to kill the man. The boy turned a cold shoulder, responding much later, "But we did kill him." Damn.
Okay, this is my favorite question. We've seen the man turn to violence and evil in times of necessity. In this situation, it seems beyond necessary to take the thief's clothes, and clearly a tit for tat strategy employed by the man. Why do you think he commits this act now?
He even says it, fear. like he's like the boy and him start arguing, and the boy's biggest point is, "Papa, he's scared." And then the papa says, "But I'm scared too." I think it was like a that he almost lost like all his hope at that point. Like they only had the gun, and if they would have lost all that stuff, then hope would have been. And I think he's also kind of panicking because they got to the shore and there's nothing there, and so the boy mentions long term goals when he picks it up from his dad. And this is also another interesting side part. And now I'm just going down a loop. The long term goals was brought up by the father, but not in the book. So you can see how the father has gone from having like these long term goals to just trying to survive day to day. And I think this part when he gets to the sea and he realizes like this was his basically his goal was to get to the shore. And now that he got to the shore and saw there was nothing, I think he's starting to panic.
I also
Also,
think that.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Ty. Oh.
Okay. All right. All right.
I'll go.
I think ultimately, uh, this is the first point where the boy realizes, like, they'd used the phrase "we're the good guys" constantly throughout the book, and I think this is the first point that the boy truly realizes that his dad maybe isn't necessarily in the right or good all of the time, while the boy definitely has seen the right side through everything, has always been, the person performing in the right, and this is the first time the dad outwardly, with his actions, betrays what he's been telling his son, hence why he gives him the cold shoulder at night.
I was gonna say that I think the man knows that his health is deteriorating, and I think he draws his line in the sand and hopes to kind of get it across to the boy that not everyone's going to be nice to you or like whoever you come across when I'm gone, and kind of hopes to teach his son some more lessons, I guess, before he's gone. That's still kind of the way I viewed it. Like he's trying to get his last message across before he's gone because he can feel himself kind of deteriorating internally.
Another thing that's interesting going off this part is the whole book, the boy is saying like, "We're looking for like other good guys, right?" And the dad's like, "Yeah." And then they make a big point about the good guys and the bad guys. And I feel like they encounter so many more good guys in this book and in the movie. And the father like never is accepting of these other good guys. Like he doesn't never wants to bring him in, but the son always wants to bring him in. And then the second, not to spoil the book, but the second the son's on his own and like the first good guys he finds, like he instantly like open to joining them, which I guess it's different situation. He's on his own now and he's a kid, but
See, re-say that because I muted my mic to eat Jesus for the viewers. The kid definitely represents, a sense of hope and humanity, a positive light in the world, while the man kind of represents this cynicism that we develop as we get older and how the world kind of scars us and how we view it. So there's definitely some symbolism in terms of the way the boy treats the world and how he acts in his actions, and how the man has been beaten by the world and ultimately um, can't view the world in the same light that the kid does. I don't think neither is necessarily right or wrong. It's just how we roll through the world. Any other thoughts before I carry on? Nope. Okay. Moving forward, they now carried a cart full of some supplies. Despite the supplies, there was now clearly a rift between the pair of them. Despite the silence, they carried on through a nearby town, looking for key supplements. Suddenly, an object came flying by them. They dove for cover. However, it wasn't enough. The man was struck by an arrow in his leg. However, he didn't panic. Quickly, he raised the flare gun at the window, shooting the shooter when he re-peeked. Some nice COD action there. Setting him on fire. Reloading the gun, he ran into the house. Inside, he found a woman crying over the body. She cursed him, but he quickly left. Down the road, he began to look over his wounds. The arrow had done damage and worked quickly to stitch himself. He was stable for now. For the next couple of days, the man took the opportunity to try and heal, both physically and his relationship with his child. Despite attempts, the child refused to engage in meaningful discussion with the man. The kid no longer felt that they were the good guys in the stories. The man hadn't done the right thing with the man that had stolen their cart. With that, they decided it was time to carry on. The man continued to get worse with his other conditions. They had to stop more frequently, the coughing and the blood increased. Down the coastline they went until the man could walk no more. They stopped along the water. He could go no further. He would die here. The boy tried to aid him, give him shelter, but the man protested it all. He had accepted death. He told the boy that he had to carry on by himself. He had to carry the fire and keep going south. The boy protested that he didn't have the fire, but the man said it was always within him. The boy begged for the man to take him with him, but the man said he didn't have the heart for it. He never did. In the morning, his father had passed.
Damn.
Pour one out, award.
Uh,
Early nominee.
so I had a quote that I thought was I didn't actually realize what it was saying the first time I read it, and then I kind of reread this section a little bit, and I was like, wait, what? That didn't make sense. So it was when they were crossing the bridge, or the bridge had collapsed in front of them, and they were like, there was water underneath, and they were looking out to like the country beyond, trying to figure out how they were going to cross it since there was no bridge now. And it says, "What are we going to do, Papa?" He said. "Well, what are we?" said the boy. So the man
Yeah.
calls the kid Papa.
I caught
What do you
that
guys
too.
think?
I didn't know what to think of this at all. My brain kind of
When was this again?
the part.
This is like he's about to die, like he's coughing up blood, like limping, and they come to a collapsed bridge. It's on page 275 towards it's like the last two lines. They're about to cross the bridge, and then so there's water, and I don't know if the man maybe couldn't cross it because he was just too injured, but they were like looking out over the horizon, and then the man asked the boy, like, "What are we going to do, Papa?" And then the boy was like, "Well, what are we?"
Hmm.
And I was like, "What? What is this even like? What's happening?" And I didn't really catch it the first time because I thought, like, "What are we going to do, Papa?" He said. I thought that was the boy. But
What
then
page
the
is
next line,
it for the readers?
275. But then the response is, "Well, what are we?" said the boy, and I was like, "Wait, what? Did the boy speak twice?" Or
I think I do remember that now that you bring that up. I had to reread it and I still didn't understand it now that you mention it. I think.
I'm guessing
I
it's just
didn't.
like my only thought was it's like a reversal of roles. So like the man has got to
Yeah, like
yeah, like
symbolism for
now
That's
he's taking
my
the
guess.
the torch.
We do.
That or the
I was gonna say we get some perspective changes in terms of how it's being narrated to us, like in the near end too. Like it switches to second person in the last paragraph. There's parts of this book I feel like switched to third person limited instead of third person omniscient. So it's very weird. We get a lot of shifts.
knew that.
We need
Right.
we need an English lit teacher in here basically.
Real readers know.
yeah, parts of this book like brought me back to English AP Lang and English lit, like
This book
trying to
definitely
decipher.
sweeps in English classrooms around the country.
Like when the teacher asked the
Why
question,
some
there's
poor
so
kids are having
obviously
an
they're
essay
so
over that.
obviously yeah, they're looking for one answer that nobody can give. Then the teacher just gives you the answer on what it means.
Tyler. There was another part where there was also in this section there was the part where the boy started taking care of him when he couldn't like get up anymore. He started talking about like there being a light around the boy, and then like so just more of that angelic symbolism of like light around the boy, and then uh the father said, "There is no prophet in the earth's long chronicle who's not honored here today. Whatever form you spoke of, you were right," which I don't know what that means, but sounds religious.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't get
Started
credit.
getting really it started getting really weird around this point, and I was like, I stopped understanding what was being said. So
All right, I'll
Tyler was also Tyler was correct about the last paragraph. I was lost. They mentioned the trout before in the book, and I was confused. I think it was when they were at the waterfall, and then they mention it here again, and I was I couldn't comprehend.
a lot of trout, a lot of scales. All right, I got one last paragraph here to read, and then we can talk about the book as a whole. The boy waited there for 3 days. He wasn't ready to move on. On the third day, a man approached, a shotgun slung over his shoulder. The man asked the boy to join him. The boy asked the man if he was one of the good guys. He responded, yes. He asked if he was carrying the fire. The man responded that he was in fact carrying the fire. He told the boy two kids joining him as well. With that, the boy decided to join them, saying goodbye to his father one last time, looking on to his new life.
In the movie, they make this other man look disgusting. And if I had never read the book, I would say that the boy was probably going to get murdered by that man.
Yep, that was my vibe too.
Yeah, the movie does, it makes it seem like he's about to get Cade, but in the book, it's kind of, I feel like the book is inferring that that's a good guy. When I looked on some reviews online, some people were debating whether that guy was ultimately a good guy or not. It seems to me like he's a good guy. Like, I think he goes out of his way to do things.
Well,
But
it was interesting because he says in the book and in the movie that they were following him and they were kind of waiting for the man to die because they kind of caught that maybe the man was evil, whereas the boy was the good guy. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I picked up on.
Yeah, the combination of like
Yeah.
the angelic glowing when the in the book and then at the end of the movie when they're like when they're like waiting for him to die. And you get a ton of I didn't realize it during the movie, but you get a ton of glimpses of them following them, even from like the beginning. Like there's the dog barking when they're in the cellar and the boy following because that was the same boy that was following them.
I didn't realize the
I
dog. Good point.
yeah. I I think the boy was this isn't the point I was going to make, but I think the boy was different in the book, and
Yeah.
the movie kind of did it differently. I think the boy in the book, not the boy, but the boy that the boy sees. I think the boy is so hard to talk about. I think it is the boy seeing himself without his father. So it's almost like the fears that he would have when he's all alone, and it's foreshadowing. It's him seeing himself alone in the future. Um what was I gonna say? Shit. I forgot. I'll think of it again.
Shall we go into our scores and reviews?
That seems like a good point to do that.
Yeah.
Anyone have inkling to go first?
I can go first. I don't really know what I'm gonna say. Um
I haven't even thought of the score.
I'll just start talking. Uh okay. I thought this book was really average. Um I think like from a plot standpoint, it took a really long time for the plot to start to develop. I almost wish there were more circumstances of them running into trouble, such as the basement part, and the part at the start of the book where the father shoots the man that tries to lure them in with them. Uh, Besides those two parts, and then some sprinkled around the ending, the man getting shot, the thief, Eli, there's really not a whole lot of interaction with other characters, and therefore you kind of just get bored. It's looking for food, finding food, going to the coast, being back on the road, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, so I thought it dragged a little bit. I I thought the symbolism was great. I think Cormac McCarthy does a good job with like some of the deeper meaning in the book. It's obviously very religious in nature. I think like the parts that are easy for us to understand are the boy um being a religious figure, being goodness, and the father uh showing another side of love in that he would do anything for the boy, and because of that he's not so much of that religious figure, more so of his protector, who's also capable of doing really evil things. And then there's some symbolism that I think we have a tough time understanding. Maybe that's the point. Maybe some of it is supposed to be open-ended and left up to the reader's interpretation. I liked the ending. I thought it was a fairly happy ending. I think it's what we expected the whole story. I think at a certain point you understand that the father is going to die and that the boy is going to be on his own, but you don't see this twist in the end. And I think this is what I was going to say. Um, I think that in the end you see that the father's what he thought of as his strength in that he was suspicious of everything, would trust no one, and look out for only his and the boy's survival, ended up being his weakness. And the boy's strength, which the father somewhat ignored and failed to understand completely, turned out saving him in the end. In this ended ending, which really I took as the boy was saved because of his own charity and goodness, and other people saw that in him, and kind of that karma aspect that Jared talked about paid off. Um, Still kind of average. It was kind of enjoyable, sometimes boring. Uh, I I'll put it at 6 flat. I think that's a really average score based on. I know that 5 flat is supposed to be our average meter, but based on my other scores, I think 6 is probably average, and that's what I'd put it at.
Pretty
Am I
average.
supposed to talk about the movie? If I'm supposed to talk about
No, not yet.
the movie,
Not yet.
okay,
Not yet. You're good.
okay,
It's just
right.
strictly the book. With that, I can go next since I'm probably gonna echo a lot of what you said. Um, I thought the open-endedness of the book, the fact that we got just, like, one character's name, and it was an old man that appeared on, like, 10, 15 pages, and that was the only name we got in the entire book, so you don't really get the characterization of, like, names throughout the entire book, and then the fact that you never learn in terms of the post-apocalyptic side of this book, you never learn what happened, so that's all open-ended, then the ending is pretty open-ended. There's just a lot that McCormack that how you say it? No, Cormac
Cormac.
McCarthy, not Cormac.
Goodbye.
Uh, he leaves a lot of things up to interpretation, which I find it enjoyable and also not enjoyable because it kind of pisses me off at some points when you're like make it make sense what is happening, but at the same
Just tell
time,
me.
it allows you like then you can start theorizing and you could make up some crazy conspiracy theories in terms of just in all facets of the book, like the characters, what they represent, what the post-apocalyptic event represents at the beginning, the ending, what happens at the end. So he does leave a lot of it up to interpretation. I actually read the entire second half, so page 138 to the end in one sitting. And Cormac McCarthy's style of writing was so weird. Like I wanted to keep reading because I was like, something is gonna happen. Like he has me kind of on edge. And then nothing would ever happen. So I don't know if I how I feel about that part. Like I kept thinking there was gonna be some sort of like action with we obviously got the part in the beginning when the man shoots the other man in the head, but I was expecting there to be more chaos between the man and the boy, like fighting outsiders and stuff. But all in all, I would say I enjoyed this book. I have like such mixed mixed emotions because like I enjoyed reading it, like I wanted to keep reading it, and then at the end I was kind of disappointed. But then at the same time I was like, wow, this is open ended. Like, what did all this stuff really mean? So I found myself going back and like trying to think about what it meant, but then ultimately couldn't figure it out. So where am I now? Um, just based off of other scores, I thought this was better than average personally, and it's one of our first fiction books, so I don't really have a ton to base this off of. And then there were none. Shit book. This thought was better. Um, Agatha Christie walked so Cormac McCarthy could run though. 1939. So I think I'm gonna give this overall a 7.5 just because it did want me to keep turning the pages, and I did like looking at the symbolism of the characters and just everything involved because it was so gray, just like the movie, but then the simple mention of, like, apples or, uh, characters, it kinda kept my brain turning, so 7.5 is my score.
All right. Thank you. I guess I could go next. A lot of mixed thoughts, like you guys said. Some complaints I had with the book. I don't like the dialogue. I think ultimately it's a stylistic choice why he made the dialogue that way, but that doesn't mean necessarily that I had to like it. I think he does it that way, if I were to guess, because he wants actions to speak louder than words in his own book, and ultimately they do, but it doesn't necessarily like I said, I do like to be characters to be more fleshed out. I think he could have fleshed out some more characters, and you can definitely that's primarily done through dialogue. So I would have appreciated a different style of dialogue. It's just not for me. Some other things I don't like. Too much symbolism. I think it almost gets mentally exhausting with how much symbolism there is, because you're constantly trying to think how things apply to broader things, and that can get exhausting. You have such a simple plot. Like, the plot is not complicated at all, like Christian talked about. It's kind of just basic in all forms, but um but you're constantly having to think about how things apply to religion or all the things that we talked about during this meeting. So, um, I found that exhausting, and like I said, I didn't like the dialogue. Those are my two complaints about it. The symbolism that is provided is pretty good. I think he's trying to tell a clear picture, and there's a lot to like about the way he's talking about the world. A lot of the reviews, this is an addition, and a lot of the reviews I read were talking about how much this impacted them as a father, like this book meant to them as a father. I think that's a point in life that none of us can appreciate. But when I started thinking about it, like last night, I guess I kind of get it, right? Because we talk about the cynicism that the father has and how much he has to battle that, compared to his kid who sees the world through such a new and exciting lens, which is an interesting thought. And I think I also read that Cormac based a lot of the dialogue based on conversations he had with his own child. So that was very interesting. Um, yeah, a lot of mixed thoughts. I It's tough to review this because how much I enjoy it and what I would rate it on a, like, is it analytical, if I was to put it in like a English lit class, are very different. I think I'm going to lean towards the latter half because I think that's more fair. Just because I don't like it, I don't want to rate it necessarily bad, because I think it's really well written for what he's going for, if that makes sense. With that, I'll give it a 7. Straight 7. Rookie score.
Right down the middle. Oh wait, no, never mind. I lied. Right down the middle of a 6.75.
Just realized I rated this book under The Great Game. That's really unfortunate.
Well, you
No,
can
you
change it. You still got
Still
time.
time.
No, you did. Oh yeah, you did.
6-2.
Yeah, that's tough.
Six,
There you go.
6-1.
Just put it.
Yeah.
Put it
6-2.
at 6-2. There you go.
Okay. That leaves me. I think I echo a lot of what you guys said. I think
Jared, you
Kevin.
can't. We're not letting you rate it because the current score is good enough.
Come on, man.
It's a 6.9, Jared. If you can't see.
Yeah, I can see it. Uh, got me.
Disappointing.
Favorite position for Tyler.
Joke's on you. He's ranking at a 6.9.
Yeah, I actually was going to. That's the funny thing. Or even get into it, but I mean, I'll keep it that. But, I guess I'll get into my thoughts. I think Kevin put it best. Like, this book was like a page turner in the fact that I didn't want to stop reading it, but like I was never like fully invested in it. If that makes sense. Like I wanted to keep reading because I thought something was going to happen, and nothing ever ended up happening. And I was a little bit disappointed in that aspect of it. I think it was really well written too, like Tyler said. I think obviously Cormac McCarthy's a legendary author. What you're going to get a good book out of it. I've never looked up so many words while reading a book than in this book, because there was some vocab that I just never had heard before, and I just wanted to make sure I was trying to understand it right. Um, so I think it's very well written. I think that's a great pro to it too. And Tyler touched on the symbolism. There's obviously a ton of it in here. I think it almost leans to going too much symbolism, like Tyler said. And that could be a good thing and a fault, because it keeps people engaged and people try to look out for the tinier things in the book. But at the same time, like Tyler said, it becomes exhausting. And I think I kind of got that a little bit towards the end, where I kind of gave up on rereading it multiple times, just because I was like, if I'm not going to get it now, like, am I ever going to get it? So I just kept on reading. Um, some cons. I thought it was like, I think we all mentioned this, but it's like a very depressing book. It's a lot of monotonous, same day, like Groundhog Day type writing. And I think, like Christian said, it could use a little bit more climactic points. Obviously, I know that's not what Cormac wanted in his style of writing, or else he would have done something differently. But I think I would have benefited a little bit more from a little bit more of It's from the same day dialogue, and I didn't really love the dialogue. Like Tyler said, it was really dry, and obviously there's a stylistic choice within that. It just maybe wasn't something that I preferred. Um, and I think it was hard to connect to the characters, like Tyler said. We're at different age demographic. We're not either a child or an old man, like the man. Sometimes we're a child, but it was hard to connect with the characters just because of the dry dialogue, and you we were just different ages. So like I never had that chance to connect with them. That being said, I already said I was going to score to 6.9 before the book club average was, and I looks like I end up right in the middle here. 6.9 was my score. Yeah, I would definitely recommend it to those who like science fiction. I think it's another good dystopian type book. It's definitely a page turner. I can't tell. I don't think it's a thriller. I would say it isn't that. It's not a thriller, but definitely keeps you on your toes. There's this angst in the environment that you can sense. But yeah, first book of 2024 lands at a 6.9. So
Puts it at 9th place out of 14 on the list. So somewhere in the middle.
our highest fiction book though. So
Highest fiction book. A bar
only had to
each.
beat
Only
only had to beat Agatha Christie out, but still.
Racist.
Yeah. So that was our scores. Why don't we go straight into the movie now? I know if you haven't watched the movie and you're planning on watching it, stop right here, go watch it, and then come back because we're going to be discussing the book and the movie and comparing them both. So yeah, anyone have any? I know we have a lot of opinions on the movies. I know Christian looks like he's dying to get something out, so I'll let him take the reins on this.
Me and Tyler discussed this, but it was the most average movie I've ever seen in my life. I think there's nothing great about it, and there was nothing really bad about it, and in that, it was bad. I think. Um, it's just hard to sit through an average movie. I don't know. That's my thoughts. I don't have much on the movie. It was what it was.
To add to Christian's point, I was talking because I heard someone say this before. The worst type of movie is a painfully average movie because if you're watching a bad movie, you can acknowledge it's bad and laugh at the terrible parts about it. If you watch a good movie, obviously you're enjoying it for how good it is. If you watch this movie, you just sit there and I had no thoughts. I was just sitting there. I was just sitting there with no thoughts in my head the entire time. I mean, I guess we've read the books, we know what happens, but like I was still looking for like things to enjoy about it, but like I couldn't. I just thought it was so average.
they're reading lines like straight from the book that I had already read, and I'm just like, well, yeah, like I knew that was coming.
Yeah,
I guess
I had it in the background, like I was doing stuff on my computer and like watching it, and like I think I almost fell asleep in the middle of it. Like I was that like bored, maybe because I knew what was gonna happen. Like there wasn't any like anxiety like on what was gonna happen because I knew what was gonna happen. Like the scene in the house in the basement was kind of anxious. Like that was a cool scene, but like the rest of the movie was just like, eh. Like I was talking to Tyler about this earlier. The CGI was god awful. Like I know it was 2007, but like it looked like it was like a green screen in the background. Like I couldn't like get that out of my mind when I was looking at it, and I was like, this is just
The
like bad. Like
the movie really reinforced my point that the plot was very basic. Because when you watch it in a movie format, when there's not that, like, you can't really go into third person and explain what's going on. And, like, so there's not those background thoughts that Cormac was providing throughout the thing. Like, it really reveals how actually basic the plot was. And then, so when you take out all of the things that made the book sort of interesting on the back, like, you just watch the movie and you're like, okay, well, that's the plot, you know?
That's a good
also,
point. I don't. Go ahead, Kevin.
I was just gonna say it was such a gray movie too. Like the only like visual color was the fire from like lighters and like fire, but everything else is gray, so it's
I,
just so boring.
we talk about, like, I've heard people talk about, like, should movies be in black and white anymore just for stylistic? That's actually a movie that actually could be in black and white and it would make sense to me.
Yeah, there were some flashback moments with like a lot of color between him and his wife, but uh,
obviously the happier times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it makes sense, but it just was painful to watch sometimes.
The movie also focuses on those flashbacks so much. Like they take up
Yep.
a large portion of that movie. In the book, it's like a paragraph, and it's an important paragraph, but it's a paragraph. You know?
I was wondering what the budget of the film was. It was only 25 million. I was going to say if this budget is anything over 50 million, this is criminal based on what we saw on the screen. But it was only 25 million. So
I mean, that's still a
again,
pretty high budget for 2006, though. I mean, that's it's not a
yeah.
triple
But
A film, but
if you look at other dystopian like science fiction films, they're usually pretty high budget.
yeah. I mean, I like so the acting was good. I thought both actors were pretty decent. I don't think there's anything wrong with the acting or anything. It was just like as we were talking about, the plot was just so basic. And then when you translate to that movie where the dialogue is again basic, like you're just sitting there like it's like I mean it almost felt like paint drying at some points.
It was. It was really boring.
Yeah,
Especially I was saying, no wonder Kylie fell asleep. I don't blame her.
yeah, I fell asleep so fast.
She said, "Are we watching?" She made a comment about the wife. She said, "I would f her." I didn't say anything back, but okay, yeah, I kind of agree. And then she was audibly upset with the boy. She said, he said, "Papa." I was like, okay, yeah, I agree with that too.
He's annoying. I mean, did you? Well, so let's talk differences between the book and the film. What did you guys notice?
The thief, the thief, like Christian said.
What
What did
about the
Christian
thief?
say?
Yeah,
They
we should have
took
our
to
resident expert Brandon Cousins make a statement on that.
He didn't have thumbs. Is that what it was?
Yeah,
they took to stereotyping the thief.
yeah. It was a
Is what they
a
did.
very weird choice, but
Oh, was he wearing a ski mask?
We don't support
Uh,
the stylistic choices by director John Hillcoat in this movie.
do you guys realize they changed the plot of like when he goes to the boat too, a little bit?
Yeah,
and
completely.
and the childhood home.
Yeah. They also leave out like the infant they never come across, the burned
No,
infant.
it did. No, they did. It was just at a different time. They showed like the fire, and there was like a small corpse there. It was at a different time though. That I was like a little caught off guard because it was like before when I thought it was going to be.
I don't remember it, but maybe yeah, totally.
I don't really remember that
Yeah.
either, but
Um, there's probably parts I zoned out, so maybe maybe it came on those parts. Um, what other differences did I really? I just from an environment perspective, did like the visuals that were on screen, did they match what you were kind of thought when you were reading?
It looked more like Pacific Northwest versus like Northeast, from which I thought it was. And I looked it up to see where it was filmed, and it was filmed in Oregon. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe that's just me being picky, but like you'd think they'd film it in
They,
like Tennessee or somewhere, but it was filmed in Oregon.
when they
It looked
showed
like
the
Oregon.
map, when they showed the map, it looked to be somewhere on the eastern coast. I remember the water being on the right hand side.
They also added.
Um,
Remember the scene where they're in the house and they found the bodies underground? Like they
like the
found,
one
Yeah.
chained up.
yeah, and then in the movie they go upstairs and hide,
Yeah.
and that was just an addition purely for tension. Like, because in the
yeah.
book they immediately run out of the house, which is it
Yeah.
was clearly added for tension. I get why they did it. It's not like it doesn't change the way I see it, but it was weird.
Something I didn't notice in the book, but it was mentioned, but I just didn't understand it, was the people missing their thumbs. Like how half the people they encountered were missing their thumbs. And I just didn't understand that at all. In the book, they mentioned it too, like the guy the thief, he was missing his thumbs. They said something about him having like a spatula hand. And I have no idea why that was a thing.
Good die. I don't know.
The
Super
slash thing.
symbolism. Because like people kept going, like people kept waving, and they'd just be like, "Hi," and they just had little nubs, and I was like, What's going on? I don't remember that."
Notice that.
Any other
Yeah.
thoughts?
Also, another thought.
What's our score on the book? Oh, go ahead, Kev.
My another thought: are we becoming desensitized? Because all these reviews that I read about like the book and the movie are like, oh my god, this is the most tragic thing ever. Like, I'm gonna have nightmares about this book from like 2010. Like, I'm looking at reviews right now from 2010, and they're like, that book gave me nightmares. Most depressing thing I've ever read. And I'm like, well, I mean, I get it's like a sadder story, but
I would say social media may have rotted our brains a little bit. Yeah.
I almost thought to myself during the movie that I need like more gore.
yeah,
That
like actually,
I
Well, Kevin made a
like I
comment when we
need.
started. He's like, "This is going to be a waterworks," and I was like expecting to cry, and I was just like, "Oh, he's
yeah,
dead."
Yeah,
It's like, okay. It was
yeah. But
like Marley and me over here, and I thought it was gonna be like a box of tissues next to me.
I just kept waiting for that moment. I was ready to cry too, trying to let some emotion out, and then I was just like, I finished, and I was like, huh?
The movie did end very abruptly. I also, I think the book did a much better job at developing the kid, like to his final, end where he can finally venture out on
Final
his own.
stage.
Like he actually, like the character arc in the book makes sense. Like the author starts it way earlier. Like I feel like in the movie, the kid was useless until like the last 20 minutes, and
It's sick.
it's like,
Yeah,
okay, I don't believe that character arc because you started it so late in the story. Like in the book, you get like chapters and chapters of the boy slowly starting to. You get him where he's starting to look at the bodies. He's starting to criticize his dad. Like it happens over time. In the movie, it just feels like his dad gets sick and then he starts figuring it out.
He doesn't even really figure it out. He just brings him a cup of water. That's the only thing I remember him doing that was somewhat productive.
It was just
our group score for the movie.
average.
Yeah,
yeah. I
average.
was gonna say 4.9.
I was gonna say 5 flat.
Five,
Five.
five. No thoughts. I would never rewatch that movie in my life, but
Recommend anybody rewatching that movie. Also, it was the hardest movie to find. I had to like stream it from somewhere.
I watched it on 123 movies with banged up audio. It was like someone recording the audio through speakers.
I used the app that Jared had mentioned, but I needed to do a 7-day free stars trial, but my card, like I had to file a fraud. So the local now.
Your credit card information.
No, it was.
Oh, that Roku information. Oh, the Roku one. I see.
Or wait, no. So local now, I tried, and then it kept saying error with the display. So I had to go to a free 7-day stars trial through Amazon, and they have the card they have on file is like a dated card. So I guess I have 7 days, and then they can't charge me. So I can't. If I forget, it's whatever.
I see. I thought you were talking about like one of the illegal streaming sites, and then like you just put your credit card information in there.
No.
I was like, you should probably cancel that credit card now. It's funny.
All right,
Uh,
average.
Yeah.
hey, what's wrong with average?
Nothing at all.
Sometimes that's all you need.
Nothing at all. All right, well, good. That's a good like a good seltzer water in our mouth to clear our palate for the
One last thought.
whatever.
I would be discouraged from like having a session on like book versus movie moving forward just because of this movie.
Yeah, I feel like
As in watching the movie, if
Yeah.
we know it's probably not going to be great,
Yeah.
that's fair.
I think Killers of the
Killers
Flower
of
Moon
the-
made sense because it was a new movie and it had like a great director. Like we kind of figured it was going to be good and like, we went into it. It's a new movie. I don't know if I was even excited to watch this and then I was less excited watching it and then I was just like, I don't know if
To be fair, the movie had decent reviews.
It
Like, it
did.
had 70s on Rotten Tomatoes. Like I thought it was going to be decent. Like it was average though. Like
We did do Cinderella Man too, so I think that's what sparked.
Cinderella Man was definitely better than this
Yeah.
movie in terms of comparing it to the book.
I don't even remember watching that to be honest.
It's the Russell Crowe one.
I like
Yeah, it was more of a love story.
The love story.
Oh yeah, yeah.
At least it had some, like it kept me interested at least.
All right.
All right, and with that, it's time. It's time.
The main event of
Moment you.
presented by.
Evan, you have your list anywhere?
Yeah, it's on the wheel. I also put pictures of the covers of the books on it.
Ooh.
I'm so scared looking at this first.
Breaker.
Hey, Tyler, just
Copperhead
listen.
gum. Even
Hey.
Copperhead has to. It's been on the. I had an option to vote for it. It's been on the wheel like 3 times.
Hey, Brazel.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. So I have to bring up a slight concern. So Cloud Cuckoo Land.
Got it.
Cloud Cuckoo Land, that book is 626 pages, but I heard about it from a friend and it's actually really interesting. So there's 3 separate parts and it's like a science fiction, it's historical fiction, uh like fiction and science fiction all in one book. So the first part is about 1453 Constantinople and it's like a historical fiction.
Okay.
And then the middle part is like present day in somewhere, and then the third part is like science fiction, like a futuristic universe, which I just thought was funny because 1453. But
Are all these
it's awesome.
fiction, Kevin?
Golden, yeah, all of them are.
Icebreaker is so insane.
I've seen like 3 or 4 girls in coffee shops reading it, and I've seen it at like Target on like the Colleen Hoover like woman's female literature section. So
which one are we omitting?
probably Cloud Cuckoo Land because it's 626 pages.
I mean,
Oh.
Golden Compass is like reading Narnia. I mean, that's children's book.
All right, put Cloud Cuckoo Land on there. It won't get chosen anyways.
Okay, we'll see.
Would you guys rather have? Let's vote between Cloud Cuckoo Land and Golden Compass.
I can also
Hey,
give you
what's-
a. I can also just put
Is
a
your
separate
backup?
nomination. I have another backup.
What's your backup? What's the backup?
Give me 2 seconds.
What the hell is this Icebreaker shit?
There's no way it gets chosen, right?
Oh my god! If my parents see me going around the house with this book, I'm gonna get roasted.
Here's the thing. After this, the next wheel, we're all gonna have a say. So this is the last wheel where we could probably get really screwed.
I'm hoping for Demon Copperhead. We've had it on the wheel so many times.
Even Copperhead's like 540 pages, but I assumed it was fine because all of us have wanted to read it.
That's fine. Yeah.
Pages
Tyler,
don't bother me, to be honest. I don't.
Put Imagine Me Gone as the 5th choice instead of Golden Compass.
So we're getting rid of
Golden Compass and
Cuckoo Land.
Cuckoo Land. Yeah, Cuckoo Land gone.
What's the name of the
that?
And fuck, I already forgot. And then there.
No.
Imagine Me Gone. It was a recommendation.
Me Gone is what type of book is that?
Also fiction.
Oh,
that one's told from like 5 different. There's like 5 characters in it, and you get you get each character's perspective. So that'll be interesting. Forget that.
All right.
Icebreaker is literally a High School Musical.
It's about a hockey player and a figure skater.
Where'd you even find these novels?
The Icebreaker, I've literally seen like 3 girls in coffee shops reading them, and then I've seen it at Target.
Going to middle school?
No, they were adults.
Can we get rid?
I heard this.
Can we get rid of
there's a chance-
Icebreaker and add Golden Compass back?
I heard there's a chance it's a smut book, which I just found out about the other day.
Oh my god, we're gonna have to talk sex on here.
I don't mind that.
Who better?
It's a TikTok viral sensation. What is this?
Can we put Golden Compass back in there? I'm voting to put Golden Compass back in.
There's only a 20% chance. There's no way.
No,
It's like hitting.
Leave Ice.
Hey, it's my choice. You have no say.
Yep, I understand. Wheels just okay. I'm spinning.
If we get it, you can have the same reaction as I had the 1453.
Babel has good reviews.
We'll break down the top 3. Let's wheel this. Let's see what we're dealing with here.
Imagine Me Gone. First off the board.
Didn't want it anyway. Didn't want it anyways.
On Icebreaker.
We'll break down the final 2. Demon Copperhead is gone.
Oh,
No.
Oh,
This thing cannot win a
Lifetime record of 0-10.
Spike.
Demon Copperhead is Michael Sinclair.
I'm gonna pull up. No, I'm gonna pull up Icebreaker summary. Anastasia Allen has worked her entire life for a shot at Team USA. A competitive figure skater since she was 5 years old. A full college scholarship thanks to her place on the Maple Hills skating team and a schedule that would make even the most driven person weep. Stacy comes to win. No exceptions. Nathan Hawkins has never had a problem he couldn't solve. As captain of the Maple Hill Titans, he knows the responsibility of keeping the hockey team on the ice. If the hockey team rests on each no shoulder, and a misunderstanding results in the two teams sharing a rink, and Anastasia's parents get hurt in the aftermath. Nate finds himself swapping his stick for tights, and one scary coach, or an even scarier. The pair find themselves stuck together in more ways than one. Pause. But it's fine because Anastasia doesn't even like hockey players. Right.
All right, read Babel. What is Babel about? I couldn't even think. I can't even think. What is Babel about? My mind is broken.
1828, Robin Swift, orphaned by Gloria in Canton, is brought to London by the mysterious Professor Lavelle. There he trains for years in Latin, ancient Greek, and Chinese, all in. Okay, basically, I don't want to read all this. I heard that it's about like it's like a fantasy book, but it uses language as kind of like their way of that's like the magic in their world.
Hmm.
So it's about like language and like how language. I don't know. It's not important. Icebreaker is gonna win.
we're gonna get icebreaker anyways.
All right, whoever this land on is not the winner. Remember that. So,
Wait, pause. Can I read the last line of Icebreaker one more time?
oh, God.
The pair find themselves stuck together in more ways than one, but it's fine because Anastasia doesn't even like hockey players, right?
Whoever this lands on is not the winner. It will be the last book standing. I am spinning the wheel.
no.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Thank God. Oh my God.
Good. Thank
Thank
God.
God. Oh my God. Thank God. The wheel. I love you, the wheel.
Oh, thank God.
Oh, we get to read a fantasy book. Thank God. I'm so happy right now.
Dang,
It's
dude,
actually
that
got
was
good
good.
reviews.
How many pages is it?
540.
It's okay. Four
Okay.
meeting. Four meeting.
Do you want me? Do you want me to
Well,
read
let's
the?
see how big it is. Let's see how big it is. But yeah, let's read the synopsis really quick.
All right. 1828, Robin Swift, orphaned by Gloria in Canton, is brought to London by the mysterious Professor Lavelle. There he trains for years in Latin, ancient Greek, and Chinese, all in preparation for the day he'll enroll in Oxford University's prestigious, Royal Institute of Translation, also known as Babel, as Tyler likes to call it, Babel. The tower and students are the world's center for translation and, more importantly, magic. Silver working, the art of manifesting the meaning lost in translation using enchanted silver bars, has made the British unparalleled in power as the arcane craft serves the empire's quest for colonization. This is like making no sense to me as I read it. For Robin, Third is a utopia dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge. The knowledge obeys power, and as a Chinese boy raised in Britain, Robin realizes serving Babel means betraying his motherland. As his studies progress, Robin finds himself caught between Babel and the shadowy Hermes Society, an organization dedicated to stopping imperial expansion. When Britain pursues an unjust war with China over silver and opium, Robin must decide. Can powerful institutions be changed from within, or does revolution always require violence?
Ah, okay. I think this is bringing up a topic that we had talked about before, the Opium Wars that was mentioned in the Great Game. So it sounds like this is historical fiction based off of that. So I'm interested. Also, we're back to a female author.
As I say, our second female author, our
Um,
Huang.
is this considered
Would
fantasy?
It says fantasy under Goodreads, and it was nominated for the best fantasy of 2022. So
Nice.
Yeah, I've
Okay.
heard good things. This one was recommended to me as well. So
I mean, I'm actually sort of excited to read this.
I've heard it's like so.
Me too.
From what I heard, it's like the language is the magic, and like everybody just wants to be like the most knowledgeable person to speak all these languages, which just baffles me.
languages equal power.
Like in a time today where there's less and less languages every day, it feels like. But yeah, should be interesting. Shout out Icebreaker, pour one out for them.
I think we survived another Kevin massacre.
Anastasia doesn't like hockey players, right?
All right,
Uh,
Jared, next is
that would actually been hilarious. So we might have gone viral on TikTok if we started reading that.
Oh God, our takes would have been. We would have had some hot takes flying out of
Yeah, we might have been attacked by the congregate of
the
trolls
Swifty
on
equivalent
TikTok.
of icebreakers, the ice breakies.
Yeah. All right. With all that, that was the episode for today. We knew it was super jam packed, but yeah, now we have our second book of 2024, Babel. Look at us, 2 fiction books to start off 2024, more than we already read in 2023. So look at us, we're adapting, we're evolving. So yeah, so looking forward to another great episode next week, and we'll catch you guys.
bye.
Peace.